There is a mystery hidden in plain sight, a reality so close that we overlook it, so familiar that we forget it. From the rising of the sun to the breath in your lungs, from the ordinary moments to the unexpected interruptions, nothing exists in isolation. Yet the mind, once trained by fear, distraction, and routine, learns to see life as random, God as distant, and moments as meaningless. But what if that was never the truth? What if every detail carries a signature, every season carries a message, and every circumstance, yes, even the painful ones, was allowed to awaken your eyes? The greatest battle is not around you, it is within you. Because the way you think determines what you see, and what you see determines whether you recognize God moving right in front of you. When the mind is renewed, the ordinary becomes sacred, the hidden becomes visible, and life itself becomes a living testimony. Today is not about learning something new. It is about remembering what your spirit already knows. God has been speaking all along, and once your mind is trained, you will begin to see Him everywhere. There are nights that look like every other night, and then there are nights that are marked before they ever arrive, moments scheduled not on your calendar but in the unseen. Tonight is not random. You did not arrive here by chance, and the hour you are stepping into has already been spoken of in ways you could not hear with natural ears. Because before God moves in the open, He moves in the hidden, and before He changes circumstances, He changes perception. There are things that only happen when the noise quiets, when the world sleeps, when distractions fade and the heart becomes still enough to sense what has always been there. Throughout history, transformations did not always come with thunder. Many came in the silence of night, when fear and faith wrestled, when doubt whispered, but truth waited patiently. Tonight carries that same weight. Something begins when you stop striving and start listening, when you realize that God does not need daylight to work, and He does not need your strength to move. He has been waiting for the moment when your defenses lower, when the mind releases control, when the heart becomes open not by effort, but by surrender. Because the greatest shifts do not announce themselves loudly. They arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, yet they leave nothing the same. There are patterns written into time, rhythms that repeat themselves for those who have eyes to see. The night is often the doorway, not the delay. It was in the night that dreams were given, directions were revealed, warnings were sounded, and destinies were realigned. When the world dims, the spiritual sharpens. When the visible fades, the invisible speaks louder. Tonight, something aligns that has been misaligned. Something loosens that has been gripping you longer than you realized. You may think tomorrow is the breakthrough, next week is the answer, some future season holds the change, but often the turning point is not when you see it, it is when it is set in motion. What begins tonight may not fully manifest by morning, but it will already be irreversible. The seed does not announce its growth, it simply breaks open beneath the surface, unseen yet unstoppable. There is a reason the mind wanders more at night, why memories resurface, why questions grow louder when the lights go out. It is because the soul senses that something is near, and the enemy knows this as well. That is why fear often visits at night, why anxiety presses hardest when you are alone with your thoughts. But fear is not the sign of absence. It is often the sign of proximity. When God is about to shift something, resistance rises, confusion intensifies, distractions multiply. Yet none of these stop what has already been set in motion. Tonight is not about effort, it is about positioning. Not about doing more, but about seeing differently. Because when you recognize what God is doing, you step into agreement with it, and agreement releases power. There are prayers you forgot you prayed, words spoken in desperation, whispers released when no one else was listening. They did not disappear. They were stored waiting for the appointed time. Tonight connects threads that seemed unrelated, moments that felt wasted, delays that felt cruel. What you called waiting was preparation. What you called silence was alignment. God does not rush, and He does not forget. He moves with precision, and when the time comes, He does not ask permission from circumstances. He does not explain Himself to doubt. He simply moves. And when He moves, the first evidence is not always external, it is internal. A shift in peace, a release of heaviness, a sudden clarity where confusion lived, a calm that does not make sense yet feels undeniable. Tonight, something will happen that you may not be able to fully explain, but you will feel it. A door begins to open in the unseen. A burden begins to lift. A direction begins to clarify, not because everything has changed yet, but because something foundational has. The night does not end the story, it begins the chapter. And when morning comes, you may look around and think nothing is different, yet you will not be the same person who entered the night. Before anything changes in the natural, it always shifts in the unseen. What you cannot measure, what you cannot photograph, what you cannot explain is often where the greatest movement begins. The world trains the mind to believe that only what is visible is real, that only what can be proven matters. Yet history tells a different story. Kingdoms rose and fell not first by armies, but by decrees spoken in realms unseen. Lives were transformed not when circumstances changed, but when something shifted beyond human sight. Tonight is connected to that unseen realm, the place where battles are decided before they ever reach the surface of life. While you are resting, while you are questioning, while you are unaware, movements are taking place that do not require your permission to begin. There are forces at work that do not sleep, assignments being activated, resistances being confronted, alignments being restored. What appears delayed in the visible is often accelerating invisibly. God does not wait for evidence to move. He creates the evidence by moving first where eyes cannot see. The unseen shift is subtle yet powerful, quiet yet decisive. It is the moment when confusion loses its authority, when chaos begins to unravel, when what has been stuck begins to loosen its grip. You may feel it as restlessness, or as an unexpected peace, or as a heaviness lifting without explanation. These are not emotions without cause. They are echoes of movement taking place beyond the natural realm. The unseen is where intentions are rewritten. What was meant to weaken you begins to reverse its course. What was formed against you begins to lose its momentum. What has been resisting progress begins to fracture. Not everything breaks loudly. Some strongholds collapse silently without announcement, without spectacle, yet their power is permanently broken. Tonight is connected to that kind of collapse. You are not fighting alone, and you were never meant to. The weight you have been carrying was never yours to sustain indefinitely. There comes a moment when the burden shifts hands, when the responsibility moves from human strength to divine authority. That moment does not always come with sensation, but it always comes with effect. There are moments when God allows the visible to remain unchanged so that the unseen can be fully established. Because if the surface changed too quickly, the foundation would not hold. Tonight is about foundation, about reinforcing what will soon support what you are asking for, about strengthening what must endure pressure when manifestation comes. The unseen shift prepares you not just to receive, but to sustain. Many pray for doors to open, but few are prepared for what lies beyond them. The unseen work ensures that when the time comes, you will not be overwhelmed by what you once desired. You may think nothing is happening because you cannot point to immediate results, but the unseen does not operate on urgency, it operates on precision. Every movement is measured, every delay is intentional, every pause is purposeful. The unseen realm is not chaotic, it is ordered. And when order is restored in the unseen, disorder loses its hold in the seen. Tonight is part of that restoration, a recalibration of direction, a quiet correction of course, repositioning that will make sense later, even if it feels unclear now. There are nights when heaven seems silent, but silence does not mean inactivity. A judge does not speak while deliberating, yet decisions are being finalized. Tonight carries that weight of deliberation, of resolution forming before announcement. What is being settled now will echo into days, weeks, and seasons ahead. The unseen shift is not emotional hype, it is spiritual reality. It is the reason sudden changes later feel unexpected yet inevitable. It is why breakthroughs appear to come out of nowhere, when they were actually forming all along. Before manifestation comes recognition, because God does not reveal outwardly what has not first been acknowledged inwardly. Many miss what is happening not because it is absent, but because they are looking for the wrong sign, the wrong sound, the wrong timing. Recognition is not about sight, it is about alignment of awareness. When the heart is tuned, it detects movement before evidence appears. That is why two people can stand in the same moment, experience the same circumstances, yet only one realizes that something holy is unfolding. Recognition is the doorway. Until it opens, manifestation waits. Not because God withholds, but because revelation must come before reception. Throughout history, the greatest moments were recognized by the few before they were celebrated by the many. Deliverance was already present before chains fell. Direction was already given before paths opened. The shift had already occurred before the world noticed the change. Recognition does not demand proof, it responds to truth. It is the quiet knowing that rises without logic, the certainty that settles without explanation. When recognition happens, doubt loses its voice, because the Spirit has already perceived what the mind cannot yet articulate. This is why tonight matters. Not because something will suddenly appear, but because something will be perceived. And once it is perceived, it cannot be unseen. There is a difference between waiting for God to move and realizing that He already has. Many delay their faith because they are waiting for manifestation, not understanding that manifestation follows agreement. Recognition is agreement with what God has already set in motion. It is the moment when resistance weakens, when striving ends, when the heart stops asking if and starts understanding that it is already underway. This is not imagination, it is spiritual awareness. The unseen becomes real not when it becomes visible, but when it becomes acknowledged. And acknowledgement shifts posture, decisions, expectations, and direction. You do not recognize with your eyes, you recognize with your spirit. That is why recognition often comes in stillness, not in noise. In reflection, not in reaction. When the soul quiets, it hears what has been speaking all along. Tonight invites that quiet. Not forced silence, but surrendered attention, because recognition cannot be rushed. It arrives when you stop demanding signs and start discerning patterns. When you notice how things are lining up, how resistance is easing, how clarity is replacing confusion. These are not coincidences, they are indicators. Recognition reads the indicators and understands their meaning before the outcome is revealed. Many think manifestation creates faith, but faith recognizes before it sees. That is the order. Recognition trains the heart to stand firm before evidence arrives. It is why some remain steady while others panic. They have recognized what is happening beyond the surface. They know that what looks unfinished is already decided. Recognition does not deny reality, it understands timing. It knows that the process is not the absence of progress. It knows that delay is not denial. It knows that silence is not inactivity. This knowing becomes an anchor. When recognition settles in, urgency fades. Fear loses leverage. The need to control weakens. Because recognition trusts the order of things. It understands that God does not rush outcomes, He establishes them. And establishment requires awareness. Tonight, recognition begins to sharpen. Not dramatically, not loudly, but clearly. You begin to sense that something has shifted, even if you cannot yet explain how or when it will show itself. That sensing changes how you pray, how you rest, how you wait. Waiting becomes expectancy. Expectancy becomes confidence. Confidence becomes peace. There are moments when God allows recognition to come before relief, because recognition sustains you until relief arrives. It keeps you from quitting too early, from misinterpreting the process, from walking away at the threshold. Many turn back not because nothing is happening, but because they fail to recognize that something already is. Tonight corrects that. It recalibrates perception. It sharpens discernment. It trains the inner eye to see beyond the immediate and into the intentional. Recognition also brings responsibility. Once you see, you are accountable to walk accordingly. Once you know, you cannot live as if you do not. This is why recognition is often gentle at first. It gives space to adjust, to align, to prepare. It does not overwhelm, it invites. It does not force, it reveals. And what it reveals grows clearer with attention. The more you acknowledge it, the stronger it becomes. The more you resist it, the quieter it waits. Recognition is patient, but it is persistent. Tonight is not about everything changing at once. It is about realizing that change has already begun. That what you sensed was not imagination. That what you felt stirring was not emotion. That what has been drawing your attention was not accidental. Recognition connects the dots backward and forward. It shows you how the past was preparation and how the present is positioning. It gives meaning to what once felt confusing. It reframes struggle as transition. When recognition settles in, you stop asking why and start understanding what. You stop fighting the process and start cooperating with it. You stop fearing the unknown and start trusting the order. Recognition does not remove mystery, but it removes anxiety, because it assures you that the mystery is intentional, that nothing is wasted, that nothing is late, that nothing is lost. And once that assurance takes root, manifestation is no longer something you chase, but something you prepare to receive. Before acceleration comes alignment, because speed without direction does not produce progress. It produces chaos. Many desire sudden movement, rapid answers, immediate breakthroughs, not realizing that misalignment delays more than waiting ever could. God does not accelerate what is out of order. He first adjusts the foundation, straightens what has drifted, realigns what has slowly shifted without notice. Alignment is often subtle. It does not feel like momentum. It feels like correction. It feels like pause. It feels like being restrained when you want to run. But restraint is not rejection. It is preparation for velocity. Alignment begins internally before it ever shows externally. Thoughts realign, desires recalibrate, motives are purified. What once felt urgent begins to feel unnecessary. What once distracted you loses its pull. This is not loss, it is focus being restored. Acceleration requires clarity because speed magnifies direction. Whatever you are aligned with when acceleration comes will be intensified. That is why God is precise with timing. He is not slow, He is exact. He knows that moving too quickly in the wrong direction costs more than moving slowly in the right one. There are moments when it feels like everything is slowing down, when doors seem closed, when progress appears stalled. Yet beneath the surface, alignment is taking place. Connections are being adjusted. Priorities are being reordered. You are being positioned where momentum will actually sustain you rather than exhaust you. Acceleration is not merely doing more. It is moving with purpose. And purpose requires alignment with intention, not impulse. Alignment also brings resistance because anything out of place resists being corrected. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is being set right. When alignment happens, friction occurs. Old patterns push back. Familiar habits protest. Comfort resists change, yet every adjustment reduces future strain. Every correction removes future obstacles. What feels restrictive now prevents collapse later. Acceleration does not arrive as noise, it arrives as flow. When alignment is complete, movement becomes effortless. Doors open without force. Timing falls into place without manipulation. What once required struggle begins to respond with ease. This is not coincidence, it is order restored. When things are aligned, they move as they were designed to move. When they are not, effort increases and results diminish. Alignment also reveals what does not belong. Certain relationships shift, certain opportunities fade, certain plans dissolve. This is not subtraction for loss, but subtraction for speed. Excess weight slows acceleration. God removes what cannot move with you where you are going. Not everything good is meant to continue. Not everything familiar is meant to follow. Alignment clarifies this without explanation. You simply know what no longer fits. There is a moment when alignment completes, and you feel it before you see it. A readiness settles in, not excitement, but stability. Not urgency, but confidence. You are no longer reaching, you are positioned. No longer chasing, you are prepared. Acceleration does not announce itself ahead of time. It arrives when alignment is no longer questioned. God accelerates those who can remain steady at speed. That steadiness is formed in alignment. It is formed in waiting without frustration, in adjusting without resentment, in trusting without visibility. Those who rush alignment shorten their acceleration. Those who honor it extend their season of movement. Alignment tunes you to divine timing. You begin to sense when to move and when to stay, when to speak and when to be silent, when to act and when to wait. This sensitivity is essential because acceleration without discernment leads to burnout. God does not accelerate to exhaust, He accelerates to establish. Tonight is part of alignment. Not dramatic, not rushed, not forceful. Quiet adjustments. Internal recalibrations. Subtle redirections. You may not feel faster yet, but you are straighter. You may not feel closer yet, but you are aligned. And alignment determines everything that follows.